Joining us now is former State Senator Reuven Carlyle to help us understand all that's going on. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
Okay, so the session began in January. We have about 5 weeks left. How are legislators going to balance the budget and overcome this $13 to $15 billion deficit over 4 years?
Well, you can cut the tension with a knife.
Yeah.
It is an unpleasant time. Everyone is escalating their sense of tension about the reality of this, figuring out how much taxes, how much cuts in spending, the real implications for really important public programs are all on the table. So everyone's in the back room, everyone's out front, the committees are struggling with it, and every single bill that costs money adds cost as well. So right now, the issue on the table is the House and the Senate going to move forward? The governor, there's all kinds of inside intrigue that is pretty serious right now given the scale of this deficit.
And very serious talk around taxes. So this week we heard from lawmakers about those proposed taxes. Democratic State Senator Noel Frame of Seattle and Republican State Senator Chris Gilden of Puyallup commented. Have a listen.
It's going to allow us to honor our commitments to our communities and keep our promises to our kids. While modernizing our tax code that's nearly a century old, does not reflect our current economy and does not reflect our current realities.
Wow, it was a lot. I think in total you're looking at about $18 billion of taxes over the 4-year period. It is the largest tax increase in our state's history by far, bar none.
So, Reuven, what happens next? Will Democrats try to find support among Republicans? How do they sort of meet on this?
Yeah, really tough to get consensus. The Republicans have been arguing for a long time that Democrats have been overspending. Democrats have said we've got inflation, we've got demand on public services. So very unlikely that we're going to see consensus on taxes, except there is a bright light in the sense that there's a lot of bipartisanship around the issue of transportation. So we might see some progress from a bipartisan point of view on the issue of transportation in this coming week.
And then what do you make of this idea of reducing the state sales tax by 0.5%?
You know, it's interesting. We have a sales tax, we have property taxes, and of course we have the business taxes. So the levers of how they all interact is tough. We are a very high sales tax state. So it's a novel idea. I think it's a tough sell when you look at the reality of a $13 to $15 billion deficit to also include a reduction in the sales tax. It's great in theory, it's just tough to actually pull off.
And we know that Governor Ferguson has said he's not in favor of raising taxes. He's not saying it won't happen, but he's not in favor of it. His proposed cuts will only cover about $4 billion. So that doesn't close the gap.
It doesn't. And, you know, keep in mind that the governor's had a very tough week. He had the resignation in his office of a couple of very important, his most important staff person. So the inside game of the legislature negotiating the budget relative to taxes, he's been a little bit disengaged due to that challenge. I think we're really entering a very important week relative to that inside negotiations between both the House, the Senate, and the governor's office.
So what should we expect from his office in the next couple of weeks ahead as we get closer to the end of this period?
Yeah, well, his folks he's going to lean into this work on a very real level right now. It's a very important week, and you know, those negotiations relative to the sales tax, the property tax, the business taxes, and then candidly, you have a very real question about whether there could be the potential threat of an initiative that would repeal taxes that might get raised.
You spent years in Olympia. You know what this period is like for legislators. Can you describe it for us as they are scrambling to try to get some of these bills passed?
Yeah, these last few weeks are very tense. And you can imagine you work a year on a bill or 2 years on a bill and you get down and your bill is hanging on by duct tape and your dental floss and you're struggling to get that thing over the line. So a lot of members have a lot of tension right now. And then, of course, the budget reality overlays and clouds the entire picture. So it's a little bit of a stressful time personally and professionally down in Olympia right now.
Do you think they'll get it done, or should we expect a special session?
You know, it's a tough question, but the political risk to Democrats who are in the majority in the House, the Senate, and the governor's office is really high to not finish on time. So high risk if they don't do it. Public, I think, would really react negatively to that. But these final negotiations are tough.
We'll have you back in a week to talk about what was accomplished in the next few days. Thank you so much, Reuven Carlyle. We appreciate it. And for in-depth coverage of everything out of this legislative session, you can text the word session to 206-448-4545. We'll send you that link.